Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Clara Harris? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, consider supporting me on Patreon, and check out my podcast. I will put the relevant links in the description for this video. So first I'll start with the background, I'll move to the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Clara Suarez met David Harris in 1991 when they were both in their early 30s. They would marry less than a year later on February 14, 1992. The couple would live in Texas. David had a daughter named Lindsay from a previous marriage. Clara and David would have twin sons in 1998. David was an orthodontist and Clara was a dentist. The couple owned 6 dental offices and earned $650,000 a year. They were able to afford an expensive home in Friendswood, Texas. A 39-year-old woman named Gail Bridges was hired to work as a receptionist at the Clear Lake office in 2001. Gail had divorced from her husband sometime before this and moved into her own place. She took the job because she needed to work, even though she was only making $1,800 a month, much less than she was used to. David was attracted to her. They started having an affair. Several employees and others noticed activity which made them suspicious. David started exercising and losing weight. He lost 20 pounds. He was finding reasons to stay in the office even when he was done working. He stopped paying attention to the staff and focused only on Gail. On one occasion, David's daughter Lindsay, who was a teenager, noticed unusual behavior with David and Gail. David had dropped a file on the floor, like a patient record, and Gail bent down to pick it up. She didn't bend using her knees, rather her waist, positioning her buttocks right in David's face as he was seated. The staff found the behavior of David and Gail disturbing. They felt loyal to both David and Clara. It put them in a tough position. Some reported getting physically ill. I imagine it was due to stress, but also the lovey-dovey stuff. David started inviting Gail, who was, again, a receptionist, to management team lunches. This was out of the ordinary. When the staff would climb in David's Chevrolet Suburban to go to these lunches, Gail would jump in the front passenger seat, taking the place of another more senior staff member who usually sat there. She also seemed to be familiar with the vehicle, like she knew where the spare change was located. The staff assumed that she had been in the vehicle many times. One of the employees finally went to Clara on July 16, 2002, and told her she needed to pay more attention to David. Clara asked the employee if David was having an affair, and she responded yes. The two went out to a salon so that Clara could get a haircut and change her hair color. The idea here was so that Clara could be more attractive to David. Clara confronted David. He confirmed he was having an affair. Clara felt as though David had embarrassed her in front of the staff. She was angry. Clara told David she wanted to go to marriage counseling. Shortly after this, Clara fired Gail Bridges. Over the next few days, David made it seem as though the relationship was over. David and Clara started having sex again. Clara continued her mission of appearing more attractive. She bought a membership at a gym, hired a personal trainer, went to Victoria's Secret and bought the most provocative clothes she could locate, and visited a plastic surgeon to schedule breast augmentation and liposuction. During conversations with David, Clara learned that David was attracted to Gail for a number of reasons, like her physical appearance, but also he liked the way that she went along with whatever he wanted to do, without limitation. Clara decided to try to compete with Gail. She wanted to be superior to Gail in every way that would be attractive to David. Clara told David that she could make him happy. Clara hired a private investigator to follow David and Gail. Clara wanted to make sure the couple had really broken things off. She had given David permission to meet with Gail again so he could get closure. He requested this. Clara was worried about what might happen in that meeting. There was another reason Clara hired a private investigator. She had heard a rumor that Gail was having an affair with a woman. She wanted the investigator to capture video of this, thinking that this would convince David that he should never return to Gail. Clara had convinced herself that Gail was just pursuing a relationship with David because of his money. She believed David was a good man and Gail was the enemy. Before we move to the timeline of the crime, let's hear a word from today's sponsor, Stamps.com. This summer is showing welcoming signs of life returning to normal. People will be enjoying going out to restaurants and seeing movies. But what about going to the post office? Many people aren't looking forward to this. With Stamps.com, you can skip trips to the post office and save on postage. Mail and ship anytime, anywhere, right from your computer. Send letters, ship packages, and pay less, a lot less. Print official U.S. postage and shipping labels 24/7 without having to leave your desk or buy any fancy equipment. All you need is your computer and a standard printer. Once your mail is ready, just schedule a pickup or drop it off. Stop wasting time going to the post office and go to Stamps.com instead. There's no risk. And with my promo code, Dr. Grande, you get a special offer that includes a 4-week trial plus free postage and a digital scale. No long-term commitments or contracts. Just go to Stamps.com, click on the microphone at the top of the homepage, and type Dr. Grande. That's Stamps.com, promo code Dr. Grande. Stamps.com. Never go to the post office again. Now moving to the timeline of the crime. On July 24, 2002, the private investigator that Clara hired notified her that David was with Gail at the Nassau Bay Hilton Hotel. This is where Clara and David had their wedding reception after being married at the yacht club next door. Clara climbed into her silver Mercedes-Benz S-Class S430 sedan. 16-year-old Lindsay was in the passenger seat. Clara drove to the hotel. Both Clara and Lindsay called David and told him that one of his sons was sick. He needed to come home right away. He said he was at a restaurant, which was not true, and indicated he was on his way. Clara confronted David and Gail in the lobby as they stepped off of the elevator. She assaulted both David and Gail. David was able to easily fend off against Clara's attacks, but Gail was not as fortunate. Clara grabbed her hair and pounded her head into the marble floor, tearing her blouse off in the process. Several men intervened and tried to pull Clara off of Gail, but Clara pushed them aside and slammed Gail to the floor again. The hotel staff escorted Clara back to her Mercedes. They also escorted David and Gail to Gail's vehicle, a Lincoln Navigator SUV. It had been vandalized. Clara was the likely perpetrator. As they were standing near the Lincoln Navigator, Clara accelerated the Mercedes, glanced the Lincoln Navigator, then slammed into David, throwing him 25 feet across the parking lot. She then ran over him, circled around the parking lot, and ran over him a second time. She once again circled around the parking lot and ran him over a third time. She put the vehicle in reverse, ran him over a fourth time, put the car in drive, and ran him over a fifth and final time. I think Clara literally interpreted one of the old slogans of Mercedes-Benz, engineered to move the spirit. I guess it's too bad that Mercedes-Benz didn't go with their second choice for the slogan, engineered not to run over your husband. Clara was arrested and charged with murdering David Harris. Clara's trial started in February 2003. The prosecution's case was straightforward. The private investigator who Clara had hired actually recorded video of Clara committing the murder. It showed Clara circling around the parking lot 3 times, although technically David was not in the footage. In addition to Lindsay, there was a hotel worker who witnessed the murder. Gail, interestingly, did not witness the murder. She did not see Clara run over David. The defense argued that Clara ran over David only one time, and it was an accident. Clara was trying to run into Gail's Lincoln Navigator. Hitting David was not intentional. Clara took the stand in her defense against the advice of her attorney. She said that she didn't see David when she ran over him with the Mercedes. Clara Harris was found guilty of murder. She was sentenced to 20 years in prison. She was denied parole in 2013 and 2016, but granted parole in May of 2018 after only 15 years in prison. Now moving to my analysis. First, I'll start with this question. Was Clara actually guilty? I think the jury made the right call here. It seems pretty clear that Clara intended to kill David, mostly because of the part where she ran him over with her Mercedes 5 times. I would have been convinced of this even if she had run him over just 1 time. As for the heat of the moment element, which factored into her sentence and made her sentence much lighter than it would have been, I viewed this case more as premeditated murder. She had a lot of time to cool down. This wasn't a knee-jerk action that happened a few seconds after she discovered David and Gail were together. Clara knew they were together well in advance. The private investigator had informed her. I think that Clara probably wanted to run down not only her husband, but Gail as well. Gail was saved because someone pushed her inside the Lincoln Navigator as the Mercedes was coming toward them. Now moving to the nature of the affair. This affair has many classic elements that I've seen in many other affairs. David was a wealthy and successful man who found a mistress who he felt was more attractive and did whatever he wanted. He was extremely obvious about having an affair. He became socially awkward as he interacted with the staff. He just didn't seem to recognize what they were perceiving. It's like he didn't have insight anymore. Clara immediately felt threatened by Gail. She started feeling as though she was the actual problem, meaning Clara felt that Clara was the problem. She wasn't attractive enough. She was too heavy. She paid too much attention to the kids and not enough to her husband. She started to feel guilt and shame. She allowed David to manipulate her. Now she was the villain in this story. David was able to deflect blame from himself and Gail and make Clara the perpetrator, a classic tactic of someone who is narcissistic and having an affair. It's really the only option they have other than accepting blame, which they rarely desire to do. Clara became invested in David's shallow nature, playing the game on his terms, trying to compete to be more physically attractive. She put a deposit down on breast augmentation and liposuction, as I mentioned. She bought lingerie, changed her hair, hired that trainer. She was doing all of these things to please David. David played along. He made it seem as though Clara was improving. She was becoming more what he wanted. If she became a better wife, then he would stay with her. Clara was desperate to hold on to David, even going so far as to tell him that he could continue his friendship with Gail as long as he stayed committed to the marriage. Clara simply did not understand the nature of infidelity. She was taken by surprise. David had already made up his mind. He was committed to the affair. He was thinking about Gail all the time, obsessed with that relationship. He just did not want to give it up. Clara valued her marriage with David. She felt as though they had a great relationship. They were happy together, wealthy, successful, and he was the ideal love. She also couldn't accept David being with Gail. At some point, maybe just a few seconds before it happened, she selected homicide as her solution. This is a case where three people expressed their self-centeredness. All of them refused to let go, refused to be what they considered the loser. Clara's most prized possession was her Mercedes-Benz S-Class. It was proof of all she had attained in life, a symbol of how she won at life. Yet in the end, it would become an instrument of destruction to ensure that Clara, David, and Gail all lost. If I'm not mistaken, the current slogan of Mercedes-Benz is "the best or nothing," which appears to mirror the philosophy of Clara Harris. She was going to have David, who she believed was the best, or nothing. No one would have him if she could not. Those are my thoughts in the case of Clara Harris. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.